Good morning to everybody who's joining our webinar today. Thanks so much for joining. And I do want to mention thank you for those who are coming from overseas. I already see a few people from different time zones, so thanks a lot for that. So today you will gain reasons of why, the hidden triggers of why we react to certain situations and certain people. At the end of today's webinar, you will have a better understanding of how to retrain your mind. You'll learn how to change a behavior that you like or dislike. You'll have a better understanding of how your feelings and your thoughts are connected. And hopefully, you'll have lasting motivation towards reaching your goals. Whether your goals will be to achieve physical tasks or improve your relationships. What is a trigger? A trigger is basically for anything that stimulates your thoughts and actions. It's usually things from your environment and your surroundings, and it's things that make you behave in positive and negative ways. Pretty much anything can be a trigger. So we're going to go into narrowing it down a bit. There are triggers that are conscious and unconscious. So it's a vast area. So imagine this scene. I'm going to set this up. Try and imagine it with me. It's your first day of a brand new diet. You've decided to get healthy, get fit, and eat better and get into shape. Now, it's on this day, you also have to go to your local mall. You have to buy a t-shirt. So you go to the mall, and as you're entering the mall, you have to pass by the food court. As you're passing by the food court, you get assaulted with all these smells of fried chicken and burgers and pizza and nasi goreng, and I'm not sure what triggers your nasal cavities, but all those things are coming right through. And you can't help but look towards the food court. So now as you look, you start to scan around and what's there. And as you're scanning, you see an ice cream store. Now I'm picking the ice cream store because that's what triggers me. You notice the ice cream parlor and you start to have thoughts. You're thinking, wow, it's been a while since I had an ice cream. And it's a really hot day. Sure would be great. Then you think, yeah, but I've now started a diet. I want to really stick to it. Then you think, but you know what? It's only day one. I can always start the diet tomorrow. Then you decide to have that ice cream. You feel happy, you feel delighted, you're smiling, and you're thinking of how yummy it's going to taste, and you go for that ice cream. End scene. Now, we're going to look at that, what happened, in a bit more detail. What was the trigger that activated me to get that ice cream? So there were actually two triggers. The first trigger was the smell. The smell of all the food that I got was the first trigger. Can anyone mention the second trigger? What was the second trigger?
So I see PAF Sri Lanka has typed greedy.
Yeah, so greedy would be, that's a feeling. The second trigger here was actually me seeing the ice cream parlor. The greedy connects later on. So yes. So the first trigger is the smell. The smell is what activated me. And the second trigger is the sight, seeing the ice cream parlor. So let's go a bit deeper into the triggers. There's many different kind of triggers, but the basic two areas is the external triggers. External triggers are exactly what we experience in this example. External triggers are whatever activates your five senses. It's anything that activates your sight, smell, sound, taste, and touch. The next, we have internal triggers. Internal triggers are thoughts themselves. Let me explain it this way. An internal trigger is those random thoughts that come to your mind when you're doing slightly less demanding tasks. For example, you could be brushing your teeth, shaving. For the ladies, maybe you're putting on your makeup. There could be random thoughts that enter your mind. It could be perhaps a memory
from your childhood, from your past. Could be a happy or sad one. Maybe it's a thought of something you're going to do in the future, um, going on a long weekend, or maybe that project that's due very soon. So those are the thoughts that could lead to other thoughts. There's also direct and indirect triggers. Let's talk the direct first. The direct trigger would be if you see a smiling baby. When you're in a waiting room, you see a smiling baby, you're probably going to smile too. An indirect trigger would be slightly longer route. For example, let's say you're clearing out an old cupboard and you come across an old picture from your school days, maybe 10, 15 years ago, maybe even longer. And in that picture is an old friend that you haven't spoken to in decades. And you start imagining and thinking, wow, it'll be so nice to connect with her after so long. And then you go to Facebook, you type them up and you search them and you send them a message. The picture indirectly triggered you to send a message on Facebook to your old friend. Triggers also make you behave in positive and negative ways. So for the rest of the webinar, we're going to focus on understanding how the negative ways impact us. There's also belief triggers. Belief triggers are things that it's a bit complicated, but the simple idea is it's things that you believe about yourself. And those beliefs keep you behaving a certain way. For example, say imagine if you believe that you're very fit and healthy, that might keep you from going and working out. Religious beliefs also connect to this. If you believe it's bad to eat meat, that belief will keep you from eating meat. So it is a belief trigger. There's also pleasure triggers. The most popular example used when discussing pleasure triggers is when you go into a casino. I'm not sure how many people have experienced that. In a casino, there is specific sounds that they put into the jackpot machines and the slot machines to make sounds of coins and bells and alarms, because this connects to the idea of the pleasure of winning. That is a pleasure trigger that keeps you continuing to gamble in this case. This image you see right now is the triggering process. What you have here is the trigger, which leads to the thoughts, which leads to the mood, which leads to the action. So we're going to look at each of these areas in more detail, and then we'll take some examples. The thoughts, you can also say it's the thinking process. This is the mental reaction that we have to the trigger. Well, let's look at my diet example, my diet gone wrong. How many thoughts did I have before I actually ended up taking that ice cream? When I saw the ice cream, I thought, you know what, it's been a while since I've had ice cream. I want to have the ice cream. But then I thought, no, but I need to stick to my diet. But then I thought, you know what, but it's day one. I can always have the diet tomorrow. And then I had the thought, yes, I'm going to have the ice cream. Yeah, that's how you evaluate the whole process. So the next thing you do is the thinking process is where you place meaning. It's pretty much how we map the world around us. We put meaning from the triggers that activate us. And this happens unconsciously all the time. This is how we decide if something is safe or unsafe. So what we have here again is, I think you're getting a better idea. The trigger again, it could be the external trigger in this case, which leads to the thoughts. It's giving you way into specific thoughts here. And now the thoughts are going to the mood. So the mood is your emotional reaction to the thought. Now remember, it's not your emotional reaction to the trigger. It's your emotional reaction to the thought, because remember the triggering process. Triggers leads to thoughts, thoughts leads to feelings. So that means your feeling is based on a specific thought. So that is your emotional reaction to that thought. This is also unconscious, but this is noticeable. What do I mean by that? Well, let's think of it this way. Like an example I gave earlier is you see a happy baby, it makes you smile. You actually had a happy thought, it made you have a happy feeling, and that feeling can be seen in your face. It's noticeable. So this is where the physiological process begins. What I mean by that is this is where your mind starts to connect to your body. Your thoughts are now connecting to your body in small micro expressions. Minor expressions are starting to show. And this is also unconscious and it's noticeable. Same is true for an angry thought. Say you remember some injustice that has happened to you, you remember something bad that someone said about you. Perhaps you may clench your fists a little bit, your jaws may tighten, you may frown a bit. These are all noticeable physiological reactions to a thought. It's not the trigger, it's the thought that's making you feel this way. So let's take a look at what actions we're talking about. This is any behavior that is a reaction to the mood. How we react based on the mood, how we react based on the feeling. And this is a conscious decision. Now, I know that might sound like a surprise to you because most of us use phrases like, I couldn't help myself. I couldn't control myself. I just had to have another piece of cake. I couldn't resist. I had to tell her off the way I wanted to, what I was thinking. Now, trust me, I've used these phrases myself. I'm guilty of it, and I think we all are. But the truth is, this is just how we speak. The truth is, we do have control because behavior is a conscious decision. Let's look real quick. The trigger is unconscious and unnoticeable. The thoughts are unconscious and unnoticeable as well. You may not realize it. The mood is unconscious, but it is noticeable. And the action is conscious. In a simple term, feelings causes actions. How we feel will dictate how we react. How we feel will tell us what to do. So that, in a simple summary, is the triggering process. I'm going to focus on a few essentials about triggers. We're going to focus on hidden triggers. As I said in the beginning, triggers are all around us. We have triggers in, anything around us can trigger us. The hidden triggers in our life is when you come home and you feel perhaps upset or down, but you're not quite sure what. There was a few things that happened in the day, but you're not sure why you feel upset or anxious or down or low. That is most probably because of a hidden trigger that was activating. We're going to look at more of the negative behaviors. What I mean by that is things that make us feel anxious, nervous, sad, frustrated, angry, or depressed. We're going to look at behaviors that cause you to react in those ways. I'm also going to look at the things that keep us from our goals. This could be goals in your relationships or goals in your work or life goals. And a small disclaimer here, any examples that I'm using, any of the tools I'm going to share is not relevant to any traumatic situations you may have experienced. If you have gone through any kind of trauma, this information may not be applicable to you. This is more for general daily struggles that you may have. So let's look at the common mistakes when dealing with triggers. First common mistake, the trigger is the problem, trying to change it. A trigger is essentially a neutral, but if you believe that the trigger is what needs to be changed, it's not going to end well for you. For example, if you believe that your boss is the trigger, that's going to be a tough one because anything you do is not going to help because you believe the boss is the trigger. What about in relationships? Your partner, your boyfriend or girlfriend, if you believe they are the trigger, every time I try to talk to them about going out or doing something else, we always end up in a fight. So she is the problem. he is the problem. That's not the first place you want to go to. The next common mistake is to believe that triggers are caused by feelings. That situation made me feel that way. That person made me feel that way. That task, I had to do that job, that made me feel so frustrated. The event itself is not what caused you the feeling. So to believe that that person, place, or situation or task is making you feel that way is not fully accurate. And I should confess, these are things that I have said out loud as well. The language we use is so common for us to say, they made me feel that way, that place makes me feel so uncomfortable, or that person makes me feel so annoyed. So this is the language we use, and that's fine. I'm not telling anyone to change the language, but the truth is a little deeper than the language we're using. Ignoring the feeling is another mistake. If you are feeling uncomfortable, distressed in any situation, it might not be a good idea to ignore it. It's best to explore what's going on. If you're getting angry for a certain situation, bottling it up is not a good idea. It will come out in different ways. The trigger caused the action. So another common belief is that I felt that way, so that's why I did what I did. That person made me do it. That place made me do it. That doing that task made me, do this. So that is also just our language, and it's fine. We can use this language. That's just the way we express ourselves. But the truth is, the trigger doesn't cause actions. So the trigger is pretty much something neutral. We are the ones that give the trigger meaning and define what the trigger means to us. Feelings are a gauge and not a guide. What do I mean by that? So a gauge, an example of a gauge would be a thermometer. Just reads the temperature of a room. That is a gauge. It gauges the temperature of that room. It is not a guide. A guide would tell you, okay, it's really hot right now, so because it's hot, you need to turn on the fan or open the window or turn on the AC. Now that's a guide telling you what to do step by step. Feelings are a gauge. They're not a guide. Feelings will tell you something's up. I feel uncomfortable. I feel stressed. I feel like running away. I feel something. But it is not a guide. It's not going to tell you what to do. The actions and the thoughts that follow need more inspection. So a simple example I have, a struggle I have, is I try to work out about 3 times a week. And I usually try to work out at about 6 in the morning. And I start my workout late. I start to have this thought that, I need to stop my workout early, because if I don't, I'm going to be late for work. This thought keeps coming up when I start to get tired. When I start hitting that fatigue point, when I'm exercising, this thought comes. So this is just a simple way of showing how a trigger changes our actions. And in this case, it changes my action from working out to stopping, because I believe I'm going to be late. So it could be just simple as that. So these are some of the common mistakes that we do when dealing with triggers.